Hello, welcome to my presentation about engineering in the ancient world. Today we are going to focus on catapults and the pyramids of Giza. So what are catapults? Catapults were devices used in ancient medieval warfare until the 14th century. They were centered around launching a projectile into a fort or whatever sort of target that it was needed to launch at. It was based off of a crossbow because crossbows were also loaded up and then launched. They were used mainly by the ancient Greeks and Romans, and they hurled anything from rocks to body parts to dead animals to anything that could fit on the arm. Types of catapults. Now there are three types of catapults. These catapults are the ballista, the mangonel, and the trebuchet. Each of these catapults utilize projectiles and projectile motion. The first type of catapult is the ballista, otherwise known as the springald. Springald had some sort of projectile sitting in the middle. A wooden beam would be bent back by a rope attached to a winch. The rope would be released and the beam would return to its initial position, smacking the object. This is a property of stress and strain where the object has to return back to its initial position, otherwise it would break. As you can see in the diagram, there's a wooden beam that eventually smacks whatever is in little holes, which could be a spear or anything sharp, really. Another type of catapult was the mangonel. The mangonel was used mainly by the Greeks and the Romans. The mangonel had an arm that was attached to a rope. This rope was winded around a cylinder. When the arm was pulled back, all of the energy in this system was in the tension between the rope and the arm. So that was the potential energy of the system. Once released, the arm would go back to its equilibrium position, so the potential energy would be converted to kinetic energy. The arm would hit a beam and stop, but the projectile would keep going. The last type of catapult is the trebuchet. Now, the trebuchet is one of the most accurate catapults there is. Basically, it consisted of a counterweight and a long arm. On that long arm, there was a sling that held some sort of projectile. So a counterweight filled with sand or anything heavy is brought up as the long arm is being pulled down by the rope. The long arm has a sling with projectile inside it. The rope is released or cut, the counterweight falls to the ground due to the force of gravity, and the arm shoots up, releasing the string. It is important to note that the potential energy is stored in the counterweight while it sits on top. That energy is then converted to kinetic as the rope is cut and the long arm shoots up. The Pyramids of Giza. Pyramids of Giza are one of the ancient seven wonders of the world. The pyramids are essentially three royal tombs for three different pharaohs. They were built in a span of 85 years from the year 2589 BC to 2504 BC. Each block on the pyramid weighs around 2.3 metric tons. There are about 2,300,000 limestone blocks in total. How are these pyramids built? Pyramids were built through a combination of ramp systems, pulleys, and sleds. An interesting fact about the ancient pyramids is that the Egyptians tried to hide the method they built the pyramids with. Fortunately, through the help of archaeologists and engineers, people have been able to figure out some of the systems used. However, none of these methods are certain, as Egyptian records mention almost nothing about these methods. Now focusing on sleds. The huge limestone blocks were put on sleds. Through the incorporation of sleds, less friction was resisting the blocks being moved from the quarry to the construction site. Another system used was the ramp system. A ramp system was made in order to move the blocks up the levels of the pyramid. This ramp system had a ramp down the middle, usually made from the earth, and then 2 staircases on both sides of the ramp. On the edge of the ramp were wooden poles buried deep inside. Workers would attach ropes to the ramp and then wind these ropes around the wooden poles. These wooden poles would act as non-rotating pulleys. The workers would pull back to allow the block to move up. Here is a diagram that illustrates what the workers were doing. Another key factor in the building of the ancient pyramids was the Egyptian pulleys. An Egyptian pulley was another device used to help lift the heavy blocks up the ramps. It consisted of a cradle and a cylinder. Cylinder would have a groove down the center into which the rope would be placed. Cylinder would rotate on the cradle. A cool fact is that the Egyptians would use animal fat and put it in between the surface of the cylinder and cradle. This would help reduce any friction on the system. The grooves were made so that the rope would fit snugly and would not fall out. Here's a short video that shows the effectiveness of the Egyptian pulley. One thing to note is the mass they used in this video weighs around 5,000 pounds.
Okay.
Thank you for watching.